Morning. We've gone back into Bosnia. This is the easy way. It's a different route. We're just between borders at the minute, so we're just coming up to the Bosnian side. We've left Montenegro. Here it is. 500 metres. Driving through Bosnia is we're driving a bit blind really, because as seems to have been the theme on this trip, we're having trouble with our maps again. So this time it's Google Maps, which is the main one we would use in the car. It's not showing us any route. It's telling us where to go, but not showing us where to go, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But I'm not worried about it, to be fair. We're in a car, we can do any road in a car, so it's not the end of the world. We're heading back to Dubrovnik, and then we're going to go up into have a look at the observation deck. Then from there we shall take the car to the motorhome, check the motorhome over, and because it's a long walk to empty the cassette, we shall put the cassette in the car, empty the cassette, and then take the car back. Okay, if you're wondering whereabouts we are, we've just passed through a town called Trebinje. You should just be able to see on the video what that actually, how it's actually spelled. It's quite a big town, so it should be on your map if you're following where we're going. We're heading on the road now, which is taking us towards Dubrovnik. So I expect we'll be passing the border again, doing another border control in the next 10 minutes or so, I think. Out which park it was. Figure out what time. Yeah. Trying to copy what that lunatic. Back into Dubrovnik. So we're going to make our way now to the campsite and see what we've got left of the van.
In 400 meters, take the exit toward Dubrovnik Center.
Well, that was another very, very narrow, twisty road to get up. Don't know what our sat nav's telling us to do. Yeah, I did look when I heard that squeal. I thought, oh, for fuck's sake. And I looked at her. He's come from here. Safari tours with the bumps. Yeah, well, that's. Okay, where do we go now? Straight. Keep going.
There's a car park at the top.
Very few cars, because that way there's not going to be many people up here. There's hundreds of cars, to come back.
Oh, so
There's nowhere to go here.
no. Cheers.
Cheers, big ears.
Cheers, ears.
In 200 meters, your destination.
I need your hats and glasses.
Where do we park now? No parking, no parking.
Keep going. Park.
Your destination is on the left.
Space that.
Okay, I'm back into it. Well, I've just come up that very narrow road, about as wide as a driveway. Thankfully you don't get hundreds of cars up here, there's enough, but we're here for the views. So that's what we've come up for the spectacular views out to sea and over Dubrovnik. Oh, the big cross. there's Dubrovnik. There's the old town. That's the wall that we walked around, which actually looks quite an easy walk now, but I can tell you when you're doing it, that is quite hard work. So there's a cable car. It's 30 quid each. Is that one way?
No.
No. 30 quid each. At least it's return. That's the main thing. So we're staying probably, if you look to the right of the hill there, we're staying probably about there. Apologise for the shaky hand, but I can't help that. And that's the views out to sea. So pretty stunning, really. You can walk up. I'm pleased Christine decided that we were driving up. Here comes another cable car.
I bet it's still 11 o'clock at night.
There goes another cable car. It's quite beautiful, really, but it is quite a tough drive. Not as tough as yesterday or the day before. They were pretty hard. I must admit, I didn't think it'd make any difference driving on the left-hand drive to right-hand drive, but I could tell you it does. I mean, driving up that narrow lane would just come up now, which is not much more than a drive width. It makes you think more than it would do normally. Wow. And that's the cross that you can see in the distance when we were down at the bottom. Have a look the other way. Around the other side of the cross. Really nice. And actually in the distance, pretty much just over their mills there, so it's not too far away, because you can actually see the coastline is Bosnia. So Croatia's quite a narrow country down at this end. We're up on what's called the panoramic terrace. Back on here again, as we were rudely interrupted by a telephone call from Christine, because she'd lost me, and she thought I was next to her, and she was just talking to this random person. She was talking some bloody rubbish, wasn't she? Hey? Well, she was saying that them 2 trees down there, 2 trees over there, that's where we met them people, just by them 2 trees. And you know, I was looking and I could not figure out which 2 trees she meant. Oh well, never mind. There goes the cable car. We think cable car's quite expensive for what it is. 30 quid to go up and down when we can pay not much more than that for skiing. We can go up and down as many times as we like and use all the other lifts as well, so I think that's quite expensive, but it is what it is. So we are over there somewhere. Oh, so this fort became a symbol for the defence of Dubrovnik. Yeah, let's have a look. Go on. A general attack by Serbian and Montenegro forces on the Dubrovnik region, led by the so-called Yugoslav National Army, began on the 1st of October 1991 with the rocketing of telecommunication installations on SRD, causing damage, and in addition to the maritime blockade, the information blockade of the town was increased. Following the relatively rapid approach of enemy forces at the entry to Dubrovnik, the SRD plateau maintained a special importance in the defence, where fierce battles took place during November and the start of December 1991. At the same time, indiscriminate attacks by the aggressor resulted in the most serious destruction of Dubrovnik, where over 3,000 artillery projectiles landed on the town. All attacks and attempts at conquering Fort Imperial were successfully repelled, and it remained one of the most important strategic defence facilities. In the severe attacks on the 24th of October, the enemy succeeded to crush the resistance of the defence in Zupa Dubrovka and reached the back. Having abandoned the defending positions in Bregat on that day, the aggressive forces occupied Zarkovica without any resistance on the 26th of October. In order to stop the advancing of the enemy and their ruling the heights over the town itself, the reinforcement, consisting 70 members of the 114 Brigade of the CNG from Omis, undertook the command of Nemad Tomic, as well as one independent platoon of the 4 Brigade of the CNG under the command of Odnejiko Grobidic, came to help the defenders of Dubrovnik. On the same day, they took over Niksic and Bonzenka from the defenders of Dubrovnik, an organisers' defence. The commander of the 116 Brigade, Ivan Varenigda, together with the commander of resistance, Milenko Radic, and the members of active and reserve units of the MIA and the CWN and the TD of Dubrovnik, relying on the fort, established the defence on SRD and the coordination of all units in the defence. The commander of 9MSS Military Seamanship Sector, Admiral M. Jokic, on the 9th of November 1991, ordered the attack to conquer the wider region of Dubrovnik and Rekia, and established a complete blockade of Dubrovnik from the land and the sea and forced the enemy to surrender. The attack began on the 10th of November with the forces 3472 together with the territorial defence of Herceg-Novi and 16 squad of the border police, who started off the space at Zarkovic Brigat. After the planned occupation of Bazanka, Strigic and SRD to the same units, the order to continue the attack towards Komalac and Mosoika was given. Besides the heroic resistance of the defenders, the aggressor, in heavy battles until the 13th of November, managed to realise all their aims, except taking the fort. Taking into account the exhaustion and great number of the killed and wounded among the defenders, a part of the units on the first line was replaced. The platoons of Slaven Zek and Drako Rogovic from the 9 Battalion of CAF came instead. Showing how difficult the aggressors' attack were is the fact that the enemy didn't have enough courage to enter the fort, although at the time, from the 13th to the 15th of November, the defenders had to leave it. Trying to help the defenders, the commander of the defence of Dubrovnik, the General Maninovic, gave the order to start the fire on the fort itself using all available artillery. At the same time, along the southern slopes, a group of special police forces and the Corps of National Guard started out by assisting the defenders of the Fort Imperial, who were surrounded, resulting in the collective forces repelling the enemy and once again renewing the complete defence of enemy tanks, and then bringing the wounded fellow soldiers out of the enemy surrounding and the fort. While suffering significant losses and hoping to avoid defeat, the enemy directed its destructive artillery fire towards the town of Dubrovnik, trying to weaken the defence by simultaneous attacks on the position of defenders from the Sushpan to Belvedere. In this senseless attack, which showed the full hate towards the Croatian people, 19 died and more than 60 were wounded. The heroic defence of Fort Imperial and Dubrovnik on the 6th December 1991 resulted in the defenders of Dubrovnik inflicting a decisive military defeat on the aggressor, and with the added pressure of world media succeeded in halting further advances and announced future victory. Respecting the significance of the fort, which became a symbol of heroism and victory since the half of 1992, the commander of the 163 Brigade of Croatian Army was accommodated in its space. As a memorial to the heroic defence, 1991, the town of Dubrovnik declared on the 6th of December the Memorial Day for the defenders of Dubrovnik. Information Centre Dubrovnik had a special role in breaking out the information blockade and informing citizens, regularly performing their basic tasks. The centre became one of the most important units for town defence, and with its help, extremely good communication links of Dubrovnik units and the command of Southern Battlefield were established. Under very difficult conditions, all Dubrovnik media played an important role as well. The war editions of Dubrovnik and Niksic Dubrovnik, the Convoy Liberatus edition, were issued in town. Radio Dubrovnik managed to broadcast its programme regularly, and thanks to all Dubrovnik, as well as numerous foreign journalists and reporters, the world public found out the truth of suffering of Dubrovnik. The squad of armed ships until the cease of its action on the 29th of December 1992 was the only connection of Dubrovnik with other parts of Croatia, and one of the most important units for maintaining his heroic defence and surviving of inhabitants. In mid-October 1991, the unit had 7 ships with the crews, and then a technical and radar service, and after the 15th of November, miners and saboteurs taking part in its actions. The command and the ship crew were accommodated in the Hotel Dubrovnik Palace and Viz 2, while the base of saboteur group was on the island of Jakaljan. Besides permanently performing combat actions, the members of the squad completely took over the transport of the military forces, the wounded and civilians from Dubrovnik to the port of Brock and Propanto on Peljansac. At the beginning of 1992, SAS consisted of 22 ships intended for carrying out the war operations against the enemy. Under conditions of complete enemy naval blockade, its members crossed over 35,000 nautical miles and carried more than 5,000 soldiers and civilians. They also transported 4,000 tons of various cargo, from arms, ammunition and military equipment to basic food supplies. In Dubrovnik, hotels and hospitals were being destroyed together with hundreds of burned vessels. The building and the warehouse of the Grusport burned down. According to the data of Medical Centre, during these attacks, when over 6,000 artillery projectiles fell on the town, 15 civilians and 19 defenders died. More than 120 persons were slightly or more seriously wounded. The European Observer Mission decided to leave the town. Concerning the serious situation, the President of the RC, Dr. Franzo Trudman, gave the order of universal military service on the 9th of November for the Dubrovnik area. The enemy did not want to give up the conquering of Dubrovnik, so on the 6th of December 1991, it proceeded to launch the most destructive attack on the city. During this attack, more than 6,000 projectiles hit the area within the city walls. The liberation of southern Croatia was the first large offensive operation by the Croatian army in 1992, which allowed the heroic defence of Dubrovnik and its defenders. As a result of the Cyrus Vance plan, the Dubrovnik area was one of the Croatian regions from which the Yugoslav army was supposed to retreat unconditionally. That's why it wasn't included to be the region under the UN protection. In that way, the Republic of Croatia was free to liberate this region by a military commitment, without usual pressure and negative reactions of the world public. At the same time, by the arranging the infantry forces on the considerable part of the Croatian area which by then were an active battlefield. The necessary forces of the Croatian army were released for this battlefield. By establishing the southern battlefield under the command of the General Bobetko on the 10th of January, it became clear that defenders of Dubrovnik would get the chance to fight for the freedom of the temporarily occupied areas and to return proudly as the winners to the destroyed and looted homes, particularly in the future action for liberation and the units under the command of the Defence Command in their 163 Brigade. They again demonstrated their courage and gave a significant contribution to the further development of the armed forces of the Republic of Croatia. At the end of June there was a new reorganisation of forces and preparation for further attack activities within the Operation Tiger, whose aim was to lift the blockade completely, to ensure the depth of the freed territory needed for further advancing towards Konalv. To come to the internationally recognised borders of the Republic of Croatia, the action lasted from the 1st to the 15th of July 1992. It was successfully ended by moving the defence line to a safer distance from Dubrovnik. In the early morning hours of the 1st of July 1992, the first time on the southern battlefield, the planes of Croatian army attacked the enemy positions in the near lines of Dubrovnik. That was a sign of our units to start the Operation Tiger. The 1st Guard Brigade set off from the starting point Zavalo Slano, conquering in heavy battles the village of Katina, Nevada and Zakula, the heights of Okva, Vranilov, Glava, Kuala, Timon, from which they controlled Popov Field, and approached the Trebinj. In that action, as well as in the later course of struggles on Dubrovnik battlefield, the legendary commander of the battalion, Damir Tomiljanovic Gavran, showed extraordinary courage. According to the data of the Ministry of Family and Defenders and International Solidarity of the Republic of Croatia, more than 32,000 defenders and civilians were wounded. More than 18,000 persons were imprisoned, disappeared and violently taken away. 7,600 prisoners of them were from the Serbian-Montenegro camps and prisons. About 4,000 were repatriated, and the post-human remains for more than 4,000 persons have been exhumed so far from numerous mass cemeteries and graves. Besides casualties during the Homeland War, the aggressor caused a great deal of damage to properties to the Republic of Croatia. About 2,000 educational buildings were destroyed and devastated, over 220,000 homes and flats, many economic buildings, and 2,500 cultural monuments, and more than 500 social buildings. Thanks to a general belief that Dubrovnik would not be attacked, the evacuation measures of the most endangered groups of inhabitants, women, children, old and weak persons, were not carried out. With the advancing of the enemy, people left their homes in panic, leaving behind their property as well as personal documents, money and valuable things. The State Commission for Registration and Estimation of War Damages published in June 1998 the total damage was 473 cultural monuments and costing 18.6 million, and the amount necessary for restoration and reconstruction was 35 million US dollars. At that time, when the war actions were still going on, the Bureau for Reconstruction of Dubrovnik started the restoration, which is still continuing today. very good. Very interesting that about the war. I didn't really know an awful lot about it. I know it's only from one perspective, which is a Croatian perspective, but it's very good. Anyway, let's on our way now to get some shopping. So we're going to go to Lidl's, get some shopping, back to the van to unload it, and then go drop the car off, and then it's a 2-mile walk home. Done. Sit down, have tea, and prepare to go wherever we're going next, which we have not looked at. We have not got a clue. Tell you, I'm pleased there's no bloody buses on this road. Thank God. Better let us past. There isn't even enough room to walk when a car's